We are up. All
Awesome.
right. This is EFMG Hangout and interview with Carolyn Bridget Kennedy. I got your bio up here from IMDb. Yeah, you're like pretty much like me. You were just working out. You just doing a workaday job, and you just suddenly decided to get into the film industry.
That's right. I was a paralegal for over 20 years in the obviously working in a legal field, mostly in personal injury. And I just started taking some acting classes in 2011, and that kind of started everything. Once I started kind of exploring a bit of a creative side, I couldn't really stop. It was just kind of a thing that lit inside of me. So when I started doing that in the beginning, I had a little bit of experience doing background on some of the sets that shoot here in Calgary. And after that took place, I realized that, if I wanted to get into acting more seriously, probably the best thing to do would be to exit my profession and spend more time training full time with acting, and then working as well on learning to write and produce, because of course that really is the opportunity to create the best roles for yourself, is to write them yourself and get them made.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's essentially what EFMG is about. Um, was it difficult to get started, or because or did you, or was it something that was a fairly easy transition? For me, it was like that first year after I got out of VFS was really difficult.
And I think in the beginning, when I started exploring, like I said, in 2011 with the acting workshops, the first one I took, it was a audition hell with Peter Skagen here in Calgary. And he mentioned to me, if you kind of want to get into acting and have a serious career at it, you're not going to be discovered on your couch in Calgary sitting here waiting. So he suggested to people in the class, if they were serious about things, to create their own YouTube channel and maybe, create a character and make a web series. So I started to research online, about web series and what that is. And I didn't know anybody in the film industry, but I had a camera and I had a computer, and I had the basic software that comes with the Apple computer to do the editing. And I just kind of thought, iMovie, I guess that's what it's called. So I figured at the time create this character. So I created this show called The Bridget Linden Show. And to date, I believe it just has over 950,000 views. I filmed 125 episodes on my own, and that's kind of where things began. I started to see some success with that over time as it grew, and that's kind of what made me think, if I actually wrote, scripted content with other characters and a storyline and a plot, more so than just kind of writing, a dialogue or a topic for myself to talk about, maybe what kind of results could I have if I did that?
Oh, okay. That's pretty much the way I had to learn the hard way myself. Let's talk about Danger Pay. I didn't actually get a chance to see any of the episodes, so I'll let you do most of the talking. Is it more like Better Call Saul, or is it more LA Law, or am I even remotely close?
I think you're far off. It's a comedy. So I play a paralegal who works for a bizarre lawyer in his home office, and all the oddities and bizarre things that happen when you work for a bizarre individual in their home environment. Because there's that crossover between work life and home life that then interferes into just a regular person's work life. And how do you deal with awkward moments or weird situations, or working with someone who's very unconventional? So it's kind of a close-in look on that. I've had some people say it has a bit of a tone of Master of None, like it feels very much like you're in these real people's lives while you're watching the show. Um, uh, my favorite episodes would probably be the pilot. It got a Best Pilot nomination at WebFest Montreal. And episode 5 seems to be a really strong one as well. I had a number of Alberta actors playing different roles as these kind of unusual callers into the office, and there's a bit of a storyline that unfolds with that one as well. But I shot all 6 episodes in my house, everything even from a coffee shop scene to various corners of the house used for different callers that were calling in for the episodes. My husband played a voiceover role in episode 1, and then episode 5 he was also one of the lawyers as well. So it kind of did a over the shoulder shot, kind of a George Steinbrenner Seinfeld homage. So you don't see my husband's face, but he's the man of mystery in that episode. So we just reused resources we had. Episodes 1 and 2 were shot about about 6 months before the other episodes. So once episodes 3 to 6, I actually had a very experienced DP take part, and some more experienced sound people. So I feel the production value really moved up between 3 to 6, and I'm quite proud of what we accomplished on relatively no budget in my house. And that took us all the way to Sony Studios last year when LA Web Fest gave me an Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy nomination. And the episode 1 and 5 screened in Sony Studios. So that was a pretty incredible thing.
So the this is kind of curious, because I've heard of Web Fests, series,
Yes.
Web Fest issues, but I mean, I've never had it. I mean, I've got this, but this is not, this, I don't know if this even qualifies for a Web Fest award at all of any kind. Like
a web festival, I think they go by categories of comedies and dramas, and they're usually scripted shows. I don't know that there are many that do like reality-based topics. There are obviously ones that do sketch as well. But web festivals run basically around the world. This one in LA is the original one that started. It's kind of known as the Sundance of web festivals. It's been running about 9 years now. And of course, they have the backing with using the Sony properties, and they are known around the world. There were people from New Zealand, Australia, Germany, Spain. It was a really interesting experience, and it was a 3-day filled event with panels, and I had the opportunity to speak on 3 panels there as well, which was great to represent Canada.
Cool.
Yes.
That must have been very cool. Obviously, you didn't know. I mean, I've noticed that the people who do online stuff, well, I mean, specifically what's going on with YouTube right now, monetization is kind of difficult to get now, unless you're in the top 5%. I guess you obviously didn't expect to get any monetization out of actually doing the YouTube stuff.
No, I did not. And from the original, the Bridget Linden project that I did, I actually did have that monetized at the time that it came out, and ran monetized throughout the year. So I actually did make a little bit of money off of that. Nothing, obviously, that I could afford to quit my day job, but it was a nice little bonus. It was completely unexpected. I didn't realize that was something that would happen. With the other ones, I have set up Danger Pay on a separate channel. So it's its own independent thing. So the views on that is its own thing, separate from the other show that I created. And then my Carolyn B. Kennedy channel, that's the one where I'll be releasing super speed dates. And Danger Pay is also on Funny or Die.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen any of the episodes of Danger Pay. I'm gonna have to take a look once this is done.
Sure.
Yeah. So, how long was it before when you finished it? How long was it before you actually got your first acting part, or did you just basically just go and do the series and just not bother going to auditions at all?
Well, I have to think about the timeline of how this all occurred, because I have acted in other projects, but I think the actual speaking roles, I had one speaking role prior to doing my own series, and that was in a pilot episode for a TV show called Offscreen. It was filmed here in Calgary, so I had a speaking role written in for that by the director about 3 days before it filmed, so that was kind of a unique experience, but that would have been my first speaking role. I think following that, it would have been doing Danger Pay. And then after that, I had a role in a Bollywood feature film that was here. It was Jindawa. And I also got cast as a Star Trek kind of based inspired comedy series that was shooting here as well, called Galaxy Trek, Vulcan to Boldly Go. And I was cast as the chief medical officer. So that was obviously a major role in that pilot episode as well. So it was kind of cool getting my own trading cards and posters and all that kind of stuff. So that was neat.
I heard about that Star Trek series that was shot in Calgary, right?
Yes, yes. And then I think Blood Mania as well. I was in Blood Mania prior to Danger Pay.
Cool. Okay. So did it, like the web series Danger Pay? How was it? Was it prohibitively expensive, or was it relatively, basically more or less done on a dime?
I did it on a dime, but I will say one thing is that I believe that I should be paying everybody who is involved with helping me in the project, no matter what capacity that was. So rather than, making it a situation where crew are getting paid and actors are working for free, that didn't sit right with me. And obviously I couldn't afford to pay people, crew rates and union rates for that type of thing. So I decided just to go with an honorarium system. So I offered everybody some money out of my own jeans and made sure we had, you know, hot catered food for craft services and food all day long like you would have on any other set, and just made sure that I took care of everybody in that regard. So I kept things relatively low by obviously not having to pay the union rates for that regard, but I did obviously spend money out of my pocket to make these projects happen. I felt that was important to me to have that exchange of money and appreciation to people for what they were doing, of giving their time to make the project good, because I think that changes people's contributions in a way to the project. They take things more seriously and they appreciate being respected.
Oh, well, absolutely. Good food definitely changes the mood of sets. I've been on sets where there's been hardly any craft service at all, and people tend to get kind of crabby after a few hours.
They do, and it's much better when you can go and help yourself to, like, you know, hot scalloped potatoes and beef brisket and hot vegetables and salads and, you know, all this other stuff, and have a good meal. It just changes the environment, I think, entirely. People feel appreciated.
Oh, absolutely. I had one set years ago. I think it was fallow. It was July, summertime, and we were shooting out in the middle of a farm field, and it must have been 30 degrees Celsius plus outside. Now, I was fortunate because I was the gaffer on that one, so I could get into the shade, but there was a lot of people there. It was like out in the sunshine. It was like they had to literally drag a whole flat of water to the set, and it was like, yeah, a lot of it was gone by the end of it. I've done both. Now let's get into super speed dates. I did see that one. I like the concepts. I really like this. I like this movie a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, it took me a couple minutes to get in before I figured out, oh wait, these guys are superheroes.
Yes.
It was the Clark Kent. I was like, are they trying to go with superheroes? Yeah, and then I looked back and it was the guy who's playing Bruce Banner. I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. The ironic part about that is one of the characters is just Spider-Man, isn't it?
Yes, Peter.
Yes. Yeah, the original Spider-Man. I mean, Peter Parker had all sorts of well, I mean, he was a teenager when he first got his powers. So I mean, he definitely had a whole lot of issues that he was still working out on top of being a superhero.
Yes.
That's a very complicated character. I don't know whether well, I don't even really know whether the movies have done the major theatrical releases have done a really good job about it. What was the idea behind this? Because I mean, I have never actually done one of those speed date things, like, ever.
Then you're lucky. Just kidding. I would say, like, in my previous life, obviously, I had participated in the speed dates, and I always thought they were, you know, life experiences make the best opportunities for writing things. I'm not saying that anything in super speed dates is based off of life experiences, other than the fact that I've been through the experience of it. And I could say that when you are on those speed dates and you have, you know, whatever the short amount of time is to actually talk and have a couple of minutes to ask someone, I believe it's usually about 5 minutes, you have these conversations. And sometimes, you know, you have a relatively nice conversation, but you realize there's no spark or interest there. And other times you're like, wow, this 5 minutes feels like 5 hours, because you can tell there's going to be no connection at all between either of you, and you both are feeling that way. And other times you're kind of telling, you know, somebody is behaving a certain way and it's just bizarre, and you're sitting there like, am I being filmed right now on candid camera? Is this really happening? So there was everything in between. So I kind of used, you know, that idea, and it came to me. We were asked to do a film script among an acting group that I was participating in to write and produce at some point, and one script was going to be chosen from the group, and the script for Super Speed Dates was the one that was chosen. But in the midst of this workshop, which was on a weekend, I woke up early on the Saturday morning at about 6 a.m. and I spent about 2 hours with a notepad just writing out this whole concept about, you know, superheroes and how they would be seen if they were actually like at a speed dating event and speaking truthfully as themselves and being honest. Like, would they really be a super guy to date if they were being truthful about what their lives are like? So that was kind of how the script went about. So I went with standard questions that would be asked, and I kind of played with the best material that was available. I, kind of looked at other superheroes as well, but I'd chosen kind of mine down to the top 6 that I felt had the best meat for topics and, interesting answers to the various questions that could be asked. And then I just kind of formulated the script from there. So it was a really fun shoot. We had 2 actors from Saskatchewan here and 1 came down from Edmonton. And it was just a really great energy to put together. So we shot that all in one day. And that was actually filmed entirely in my basement.
Oh, wow. Because the first thing that came up is, what is pleather?
What is pleather? Pleather is fake leather that you'd find perhaps in like, a costume shop or like maybe an adult novelty shop, that type of thing. It's that fake vinyl-y skin tight leather. So, if you think of Batman, for example, he would wear leather, but his uniform almost looks like it's pleather. So,
oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, my interests in that area are pretty vanilla, actually. But yeah.
It's like a rubbery type of suit that he wears, but in every film it kind of gets increasingly kind of dark and more molded and fitted. It kind of looks along like something what people might buy in a shop like that at certain points, I suppose.
Well, man, I keep hearing those costumes are really hot and difficult to work in. I mean, the original, well, getting to the Batman costume, I mean, I would have almost thought the original Batman from the 80s, that costume was a lot easier to move around in than the one that they currently have. Although,
yes, that would have been breathable, but pleather is absolutely not breathable. It's the type of stuff, if you have ever had a Halloween costume that is made out of that kind of shiny plasticky material, that's what that is, and it just does not breathe at all.
Ooh, wow. Kind of wandering off on topic here. I mean, I've had when I finished at Vancouver Film School, I actually had a couple people in the adult industry call and tell me if I wanted to go work for them on the production end.
Oh, really?
And telling me about pleather, and I'm like, how could they do like? You basically have all of the issues of the film industry in the porn industry. And you're doing this scene and you're dressed up in pleather. And I'm like, oh my God, how do they even breathe in that stuff?
I can't imagine.
And I'm like, wow. Oh, wow. That's it. Hopefully that's an experience I never have to go through.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. I was a fairly big comic book guy. In fact, I'm sitting here and looking across the room. I have my own comic collection sitting in a box somewhere. This is something, is there a bit of a reputation for guys who have comic collections being a little bit geeky and like that sort of thing?
I wouldn't say that, but it's definitely something that's poked fun at in movies in general. I think if you think about the 40-Year-Old Virgin and Steve Carell and his collection of toys framing around the room, they kind of plated that he was kind of, clearly 40-year-old virgin and having a household full of toys and comics. So, there's nothing, I don't think that's that off-putting about it, but it definitely is good fodder for comedy. You just got to find the right woman that appreciates that, I suppose.
Well, I mean, what I've noticed is that, first of all, comics tend to accumulate, they are currently accruing in value. I wouldn't necessarily say they're going to continue to accrue in value. For instance, if the film industry moves away from doing comic book movies and into something else, and we both know how trendy Hollywood can be.
Exactly.
The value of comic books is going to go down fairly quickly. Now, did you have a personal favorite superhero when you're doing this particular shoot?
It's hard to say. There were so many moments in that film, and yet when I watch it again, still there are moments where I just can't help but laugh, because I feel like each of the gentlemen that came to portray the different superheroes just brought like their own element to it, that I could see the essence of these superheroes within what they were doing. I would say there were definitely some moments where I had a hard time holding back some laughter watching Robin kind of fawning over Batman. That was kind of a humorous thing, that he was less interested in the women at the speed dating event than Batman. And obviously, you know, Clark Kent and Superman, I think, you know, he just nailed the role that he did with that as well. And he really had kind of the best meat and the material for the jokes, you know, for the writing of the script itself. So that was great. And then, you know, the fellow who played Bruce Wayne, of course, he just delivered this deep voice that was just the essence of Batman, in my opinion. So I don't know, like all the gentlemen there, Tony Stark's portrayal was excellent. Peter Parker just seemed to do kind of the innocent bit of Spider-Man, in my opinion. So I think they all knocked it out of the park as far as that's concerned, just, you know, with a great representation of what non-union actors are able to do.
Oh, well, I was like, he started off with Batman in that. And actually, yeah, I didn't know it was Batman. I just thought it was just some strange guy who was engaged in something illegal and didn't want the coat check person to be checking his jacket.
Yep.
I have, because my day job, I have worked. Yeah, I got to do something about this cough. I have worked in fields where people have not wanted to separate themselves from their jackets.
Of course.
You know, there's one particular event. Was a men's event, and it was down in the US, and there was one individual there, big gun, obviously a big gun guy, and he was a concealed carry, and it was going into an event where, you know, emotions could get really intense, and you don't want intense emotions and firearms in the same place at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I was thinking about that. The Clark Kent character was one that really, especially his reaction to the emerald, that was funny.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do, and I really enjoyed finding the material, but I kept the answers kind of so subtle that, you know, if you knew comic book culture enough, you could understand what the double entendre was, but the answer would seem quite abnormal and just kind of unusual, like an odd person would give in general. So, you know, it really can be up to interpretation by the viewer. You know, are these guys in fact the real superheroes, or are they just a little bit odd? You know, like what is the deal with them? So, It was a lot of fun to write.
Maybe you should have had Wonder Woman in there too.
Well, there's always a possibility to do the other way around with the female superheroes going speed dating too, right? You never know.
Yeah, Wonder Woman would have been interesting. Another one, She-Hulk would have been a really good one.
Yes, she would have.
Oh, God, She-Hulk. Yeah. I'm giving away my inner nerd here. Yeah, I was a bit of a comic book guy when I was a kid. Was more into Dungeons and Dragons, but I was definitely a comic book kid.
So may I ask then, because you are a comic book kid, when you watched the film, did you understand all the double entendres with like all the jokes between? Because every answer that was given has had a meaning.
Well, once I figured out it was superheroes, and I didn't figure that out right off the bat.
Yeah.
It was yeah. Well, like again, it was a Superman character, the Clark Kent character, and it was like, oh, and then I started listening. Then I actually had to go because I was on Vimeo. I went back and started looking at the other ones, and it's like, oh, now it makes sense.
Good.
Because these aren't just. I mean, yeah, that whole situation. I don't know. Honestly, I have never done any. I've never even gone on to a single site at all. You know, it's just not something that that has appealed to me. So I really have no experience at all in this particular type of culture.
Well, that gives you a little snapshot.
Yeah. I mean, there was the one web series that we had discussed doing in the group. Unfortunately, the guy who was doing it, he moved to Hamilton. I think he's in Hamilton now. He wanted to do something. He worked in the contracting business, and he's told me about some of the stuff that happened there. It's like, you know, they're not working out of their homes, but some of the insanity that goes on in that industry is just, yeah. I guess it's everywhere. Don't work out of your home, and if you're going to work out of your home, don't have employees.
True.
So, in regards to your your original web production, because this is something that I've been getting into well, I've been doing mostly Hangouts, but this is the EFMG channel. I mean, I'm planning on doing regular, consistent content.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go that route of YouTube, what would you be suggesting to anybody who want to, or actually they think Amazon and Twitch are coming in as competitors?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole backstory about stuff that's going on with YouTube right now and some of the stuff that happened last year. What would be your suggestion for anybody doing a YouTube series, or even basically YouTube Hangout, which is what we're doing?
Well, okay. As far as the YouTube channel in general, I would say, keep your expectations moderate below. Be prepared for, a lot of trolls, which is something that exists on the internet in general. So kind of stay, focused on what it is that you want to do, and don't alter and change that based on any exterior opinions you're going to get from faceless people that are out there. Stay true to kind of what you see as being your creative vision. Keep putting your content out. I think you need to be consistent and make sure that you have, a channel that's going to kind of deliver what people are going to expect if they're going to subscribe to it. So, if you're making short films, they're going to be happy to subscribe and know they're going to get to view all your short films there. If you're going to be doing a Edmonton Filmmakers Group Hangout, and it's going to be based on Hangouts, keep, maybe a section that's related to the Hangouts, and you could keep, another section that's related to something else, but keep it focused to what people are going to be interested in seeing when they tune into your channel. And basically, you just kind of have to go, like with all things, I guess, when you go into network television or things where other people are signing the paychecks, you have to sacrifice, I think, a little bit of creativity at times to meet what is going to please the networks or what other people above you are going to decide. So I would say to really savor the time when you are an independent artist and you're on YouTube and you're on your own entirety, to be able to give your own voice and your own flavor to whatever it is you're creating. You don't have somebody else coming back to you, oh, we can't say this word here, or we can't show this, or how I don't like this character in here, change this to a different character instead. You don't have that creative limitations being set by other people for you. So I would say to just embrace the creative time and be creative to show your own voice in what you're doing. Don't try to make something that you think everybody's going to like, because if you do that, nobody will like it.
Oh, yeah. That's the problem with music videos. They try to please everybody, and they end up pleasing nobody. And you get, well, I mean, I know people who won't even work on music videos. So,
right.
We've got, I mean, what you're telling me kind of reminds me about when somebody else is signing the checks. You don't do a, you don't, sometimes you have to sacrifice creativity just to please a person with checks. I mean, when you're talking about that, I don't even know if you remember. I'm pretty sure you've never even heard of Milestone Comics.
No, I have not.
Okay, short story about Milestone. They came out in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. They had some really good characters, a little bit PC, but they weren't over the top. Then again, a lot of things weren't really over the top that way back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
One of the characters they had in that series was a guy named Sparks. He had electricity powers. He could basically like ride electricity, hurl lightning bolts, that type of thing. And he was a teenager. And what ended up killing the whole series, because they were getting their funding from DC, was he had a girlfriend, and he was about to have sex with his girlfriend. They weren't naked on the cover, but there was an issue with a condom on the cover. Right. And the producer or the editor at Milestone put the condom on the cover, and DC just gradually started cutting their funding after that. So that's when you're talking about pleasing the people who sign the checks. That's what I'm talking about. That's kind of a double-edged sword, because it's, again, I'm getting off on a different topic here.
I think you're in the channel of things. You're basically agreeing with what I'm saying, is that, at the beginning, when you don't have somebody else signing the checks for you, you're not, delivering to network and getting feedback and notes from network on things that need to change. or, you know, producers above you, you kind of have this magical time where you can kind of be fully creative and express yourself creatively however you like. So to really enjoy that and take advantage of it, because that's what people gravitate to. People don't gravitate to people who are kind of trying to blend in and be like everybody else on YouTube. People gravitate to people who are trying to be something, you know, be themselves, and in being themselves, they are being something completely different.
Oh, well, being yourself is always a good thing. As long as you're not doing anything, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I don't really have a problem with anybody being themselves. In fact, I generally encourage most people to be themselves, myself included. So you did super speed dates. Have you had any difficulty getting any? Well, was it, when was it finished? When was the edit finished on it?
So we shot it in May 2016, and I had it completed by the end of August 2016, music, score, everything. And then I started submitting it in film festivals since then. So it's been in the festival circuit since the fall of 2016. And it came away with 13 film festival laurels. And the last thing, I actually won a trophy for it. It was winner of Best Original Story at the Los Angeles Film Awards. So that was a very nice treat, because that was out of all genres, including feature films. So, you know, what can I say? The fact that it was kind of a little gem of an idea, and finishing off the festival run like that was pretty great. So now I'm gearing to release it on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Carolyn B. Kennedy. And it's coming out on February 13th. And I think the sweet kind of liking about that is it's the day before Valentine's Day. So to me, Valentine's Day is traditionally painted as, you know, a day for couples. And in this way, I feel like it's kind of a gift of Single Awareness Day. So, you know, Valentine's Day can also be called Single Awareness Day, because if there's any day that you're aware you're single, it's that day. And of course, super speed dates to me coming out the day before is just a bit of a gem of how hard it can be to meet, you know, a super guy or a super girl. And I figured it would be a perfect day to put it out on YouTube.
Yeah, relationships are definitely difficult, especially especially to maintain.
Yes.
Not so much getting into them, but maintaining them definitely takes work.
True.
Speaking as single most of his life, but that's just an observation. Did you have? If you're going to, here's something that was really. I mean, I thought I made a decent. It wasn't exactly what we'd call family friendly, but if you're going to do a short, what would be your recommendations for sending your short to film festivals? Like, how much research did you do with each film festival before you sent it out, et cetera, et cetera?
I did a fair bit, and you know, it kind of goes back to my paralegal days. So I'm a big person on making spreadsheets and keeping a lot of information of things. So I did research a lot as far as, you know, how many years a festival was around, what type of feedback they had from people on, say, Film Freeway or Without a Box. Usually those types of festivals get ratings on people who have participated them in the past. Generally looking on Facebook or Twitter to see what type of presence they had there as well, visiting their website to see kind of how, you know, well built their website it was and what they had. Obviously, you know, there's the major film festivals which are out there, but you're dealing with a whole different ballgame as far as you know, funding. If you're competing at, say, Sundance or Berlin or TIFF, you're dealing with people who have major budget involved, and you're dealing with star names and things. And, you know, indies, that's not really a spot where indie films live. So I think you got to, you know, look, you know, to find a festival that's going to suit, you know, where it's going to fit in. The first festival that picked super speed dates was called Super Geek Film Festival, and it was in Florida, and it was happening during one of the Comic-Con festivals. So to me, it was kind of a perfect spot for that film to live. So I think knowing the nature of your film, is the film festival more geared to, you know, comedies? Is it more geared to dramas? Are they looking for more art films? Are they looking for character films? Kind of doing that research and then deciding where you want to put your efforts and where you think you're going to find your best viewership for your project.
Oh, so research, and more research.
That's basically right. Or you could just kind of whatever. But I mean, you know, when you're paying so much per entry fee, you have to be, I think, a little choosy and making sure it's going to have the right home and the best chance of success.
Yeah, for somebody who's just doing a workaday job. I mean, like submitting to 2 or 3 festivals a month. That's unless you're doing, yeah, it can run into quite a bit of money.
It can. And if you go into like Film Freeway, I found was really helpful. You could search keywords. So I could search comics or superheroes or that type of thing and see, you know, if there were certain festivals that had that genre element involved and, you know, comedy specifically or other things like that. And I usually just read what they were looking for and see if it was a fit, in my opinion.
So you found Film Freeway is much easier site to navigate than Without a Box too, I take it?
I did.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. The one film I made was up and running before Film Freeway took off. You know, hopefully, yeah. When I get around to making another one, probably will go. Well, we probably suggested to go both, but Film Freeway seems to be the one. It's a lot easier to deal with and to navigate through.
I ended up doing both, and the reason for that is there were a few festivals I wanted to try that were only on Without a Box, and if they lived on both platforms, then I tended to usually submit just with Film Freeway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what's next for Carolyn Bridget Kennedy?
Well, it's a lot of exciting things happening right now. This last year in August, I was granted an O1 visa to work in the United States as an actor, writer, and producer. So I actually received my visa in 3 separate fields. So I actually was down in LA in January, and I now have a place there. So I'm moving there as of March 1st. So that's kind of a bit of a transition, but I've enrolled in some courses there. I'm having an audit and interview at the Beverly Hills Playhouse to study acting there. I'm also going to be studying improv and comedy at the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is UCB. It's kind of the top rated improv group right now in LA. And we went to watch a couple of shows around Second City and UCB and the Groundlings. And I felt at this moment, you know, UCB kind of seems to be the best fit for what I want to do as far as comedy is concerned. I'm working on developing a couple of other things. There's been a lot of interest with Danger Pay. So I had actually planned on shooting a season 2 last year in May, but when the nomination came in from LA WebFest, it coincided with a nomination from the Alberta Film and Television Awards, the Rosie Awards, for Best Fiction Web Series last year as well. And it was coincidentally the same weekend when I was going to be filming season 2. So there was a lot going on, and I had to push filming of season 2. Following that, I went to the Banff World Media Festival in June, and there was some network interest in developing Danger Pay as a television series. So I've had to put shooting season 2 for web on hold because I'm now developing it as a television series and pitching that to networks currently. So it's kind of a different show than what it's been online, of course, because, you know, when you have a 5-minute episode and you're trying to give enough of a storyline and a comedy, you can't just strictly translate those same characters and the same storylines and just make it 22 minutes long and now it's a half-hour comedy. You know, there's other characters involved, there's more backstory, there's, you know, kind of changes to the characters, there's bigger plot lines that are happening, and I'm working on, you know, a season arc for season 1 and then arcs for the following 4 seasons, so 5 seasons total, and then character Bible and all that stuff. So it's very, very time consuming, but I'm spending a lot of time putting that together because I feel that's pretty important to do. And especially due to the interest in this show, which I think is fantastic. And, you know, it's done very well at festivals. I think the last one it screened at was in Rome, Italy. And it also won Best Sketch Comedy at the Asia Web Awards in Korea. So it's kind of traveled the globe. And, you know, to have a show that resonates in so many countries, it's very interesting to see what happens as far as interest in taking that to TV. So that is kind of one thing I'm working on. I'm also working on writing another web series right now because I would like to write, film, and produce another web series when I'm in LA, perhaps in the coming year. So we'll see how that unfolds. It's going to depend how I can connect with people down there to pull together a crew and cast all that. But that's kind of in my immediate future plans as well.
So you don't actually have a day job anymore. You work film full time?
I do.
Okay, here's something that I think is really important to tell people about. Suggestions on how to transition from where I'm at, for instance, where I'm having to do a work-a-day job, to the point where you are able to work film full-time. And I also want to know about the visa. The visa was interesting too, but we'll start off with the first question.
Well, I think in the beginning, it's like any new business or, entrepreneurial endeavor. I think anybody, who's going to open, say, a restaurant or a store or a business of some sort, you're looking at spending a good number of years before you are going to be making any type of income doing something like that. And you're going to need to invest in yourself and in your projects the way that you would in anything else. If you're opening a store downtown selling clothes, you have to invest in your space. You're going to be paying your overhead. You're going to be paying employees. You're going to be putting merchandise in your store. And it's going to be a long time before you're going to see any profit back over what you're putting out. And I think if you have that mindset when it comes to film and TV, that's kind of the right approach you need to take. You need to view it professionally, in a regard where you're going to get back what you put in it. So I think, being prepared to understand, as an actor for myself, marketing is important. I need to build a bit of a name so I can have an audience to give people for their projects. If I get cast in them, I have to make myself marketable. And I've worked very hard to do that. I'm approaching, I think, 50,000 followers on Twitter. Building an audience is essential to the acting business of it. So, that's something I'm doing because I feel that's what I need to do to contribute to film in general. So I think, whether you're a director, a writer, producer, whatever it is, you're going to have to spend your years where you're putting in and investing your time without looking for a paycheck, and putting your work and love and effort into it, because it's something you wouldn't be happy without doing it. If you really love it, you've got to be willing to make that sacrifice. So that's all really I can offer as far as a result to that. And then knowing that over time that things will come back to you, those opportunities will come, but you have to have something to offer first.
Oh, absolutely. I've encountered people who have said, "Oh, well, YouTubing is not really a job, or being an artist is you're basically a layabout." And I've read The Artist's Way, and I've had to learn the business and through the school of hard knocks. Just my other channel, I've only been running it for about 2 months, and this one, you're my third interview. My technique, I've surprised how well my technique for interviews has gotten better. Although I can't stop coughing today because it's damn cold. But
have you read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I would highly recommend that book. I've heard it recommended time and time again, and I would have to say I have it on audiobook, and I also have the hard copy book. But it is a fantastic book that talks about basically in life, anytime you're trying to do something that is a bit of a greater purpose, whether it's an artistic endeavor. And Stephen Pressfield is the fellow who wrote Legend of Bagger Vance. That's kind of what he's probably most notable for. So he himself is a writer and understands what it's like to work on writing a screenplay and getting a film accomplished. He wrote some other films that bombed in the beginning, and he shares a lot of his personal experiences, but he, in essence, talks about anytime you're trying to do something greater, whether it's starting a new business, a creative endeavor, something noble of some sort, you're going to receive all these feedback and forces of different things, which he labels as resistance, that is going to stop you from trying to accomplish your goal. And so he talks about every reason that's going to come at you as to why you should quit and just stay at the same plane that you're at. And he kind of discusses about how you should view what you're doing as being a professional and giving this attitude and input as though you're the CEO of your own company. And would you fire yourself because you're not being productive enough, and that type of thing. So I would say it's an excellent book to read. It's a very easy read, and I find it's quite inspirational when you're looking at those times of, why am I doing this? Why does this matter? It gets down to the real heart of those issues. And you basically are on earth one time. There's only one of you that will ever exist. If there's something inside of you, a voice that you need to share with the rest of the world, a story you need to tell, if you don't tell it while you're here, it is lost forever.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I have. I've read The Art of War.
That's a different
that's an
book.
interesting. Yeah, that's actually that book has got more. That book has been surprisingly helpful in ways I didn't expect it to be, but not. I think have you've read Julia Cameron's book The Artist's Way too? I take it, right?
Yes, I have.
Yes. The thing that really, especially after I left Vancouver and came up here, and I'm gonna get to the visa thing here before we finish tonight.
Sure.
The thing that really stuck out with me when I first got up here is that I had to work out in the oil patch, and I was actually reading the book while I was out in the oil patch, and I ran into the vindictive block artists. Have you had any experiences with that?
Hmm. I can't say. I think, I've been more transformed by what Stephen Pressfield had to say in his book. So I think, the way that he identifies things as being negative or being resistance, I think I've kind of learned to see it for what it is, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It's more of a personal projection on their part and nothing to do with you.
Right.
Absolutely has absolutely nothing to do with you. And you're absolutely right about that need. I mean, I've got a book that I'm writing, and I mean the character's been stuck in this seminar room for about 6 months here, and I have to get back to writing it. But I mean, I've got a lot of other stuff going on. So yes, suggestions on time management. That would be something I think you'd be able to comment on.
I guess it's always coming down to priorities and what needs to be done versus what has to be done. And I guess prioritizing, at the end of the day, viewing what is it that has gotten to you to where you are now, and realizing those are the important things that you have to focus on. It's the content, it's the art, it's the actual art of things that draws people's attention. So you always need to be devoting a certain amount of time to that, as much as you can be busy, quote unquote, doing other things. So I think being very protective of your time when you need to be creative, setting that aside and defending it vehemently, that is probably important, and keeping focused on moving things forward. It's not always about where you think you might get to or where you should be at, but looking at always making sure, am I further ahead this week than I was last week? Have I made progress on this? And making sure that you have portions every day that kind of do something that push things forward.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking about Robert Greene's Mastery 10,000 Hours. What you were
Yes.
that.
Yes. Very
Yeah.
much along that mindset. It's that dedication and the daily kind of small things that will chip away at things, as opposed to saying, I need 1.5 weeks of solid, uninterrupted time to sit and do something. It's the little bits of time that you set aside over 2 weeks that add up. Probably that will mean more than that. When realistically, who has an hour, a week and a half or 2 weeks of uninterrupted time to sit and just do one thing?
I did in 2015. Here's the ironic part about it. I'm getting more done. Well, not going to get it. It's been a difficult last 2 years. I only just got out of it like about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
But on periods when I've had a lot of time on my hands, I'm actually getting more done now with less time than I was when I had lots of time. So
Yes.
there's external factors involved in that, of course, but it's yeah, prioritizing your time, it comes down to right to Julia Cameron again. I can't remember what week it was, but that need for you to create your own space.
Yes.
And to protect that space vehemently.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we'll get into this. It's getting to 20 after here, and I definitely have to have breakfast because I got up about 10 minutes before I sent you the link.
Yes.
Haven't had breakfast yet, so I got to eat and get to work here. How difficult was it to get the visa?
It was a long process. I would say, like, when I first started focusing on acting and producing full time and writing, it was around 2014. So at this point, I was in like study mode and learning mode. But what I decided to do early on was kind of look into this visa, which obviously is kind of this, goal that I had in mind. And I figured I would look into what the requirements were and what would be needed to do that. And so, you know, the writing and the producing of the series and the shows and the creations was obviously to create roles and kind of have that going as well. I didn't make those projects with the intention of doing film festivals. That was just kind of something that happened after the shows were done filming, and I realized how well the shoots went and how funny the material was, that I felt that there was a need to do as much with the project as I could. Now that people had dedicated the time and it turned out as well as it did, you know, I felt it deserved to go to festivals and be seen. So I kind of did that after the fact. But I think being aware of what the requirements are and knowing what it is, because it does take a long time to build that up. Once I got the nomination in the US, I had a couple of nominations out of the US and the UK and elsewhere for the projects up until early 2017, I guess it was 2017. And then when the nomination came in from LA WebFest for the Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy for Danger Pay, I figured at that point I would contact the lawyer and find out, you know, where I was at as far as being ready for this visa. So that's several years of understanding that I have this in the back of my mind, but I'm not actively applying. But I was starting to make, you know, lists and set aside information and be ready for what I'd have to submit when I would be ready. So when I talked to the attorney, she, LA attorney, she happened to tell me that she felt, in her opinion, I was not only ready for a visa for acting, but she felt she could get it for me also for writing and producing, because I had written and produced my own shows and because of the critical acclaim that they were earning. So that was like a pleasant surprise. So the actual duration of the visa from the time I applied in April and kind of end of April, beginning of May, when the LA WebFest was happening. That's when I started the application process. And my visa went through in August, beginning of August 2nd, I think it was. So having that go through and get into place the way it did was a lot of me having my information fully ready and to be able to send into the lawyers so they could assemble the case and what they needed to do. But it's by no means a small process. I think my entire application was just under 600 pages. Wow. So it's massive. But there's, if you go online and search, you know, the US 01 artist visa, which is specifically a visa meant for entertainers, people in the motion picture and television industry, there's a long list of different criteria that need to be met. And if you can meet those criteria, then you're eligible to apply. There's no guarantee, of course. It's a scrutiny process, but I rolled the dice and took a chance, and it paid off.
Oh, okay. It's like the US 01 artist visa. I probably have to find a link for that, or maybe you could send me links. I'm gonna have to take off and go to work as soon as I finish this conversation. You would suggest a US based lawyer if you're gonna go through.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need a US lawyer to do it. You need a US attorney to do the application on your behalf.
Wow. Okay. US 01. Yeah, I'll have to. Yeah, if I'll race you on that one.
Okay.
I'll race you on that one, because that's I thought you could only I only thought you could only get in as one, which is the reason why I've always been kind of sitting on it, because I mean, you don't want to have to go down to LA from, well, even from Vancouver, for instance, and go down and only be able to work as an actor, for instance, or only be able to work as a writer. When I was interviewing Piper King, I mean, Piper King has got her fingers in multiple pies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I know there are some people I know that are able to kind of go down, and they have a visa for working something else, and then they start a business of their own, and that's how they make their living while they have the visa for something else. I don't know if that's legal.
No, if you have a visa in your specific fields, you can only work in those fields.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why am I drawing a blank? Maybe I'm drawing a blank because it's time to end the interview.
Time to eat breakfast.
Yeah, might be. My brain is just like, wow, my brain's not mush at this point. I'm awake now, thanks to this interview. Yeah. So, yeah, I think this has been really interesting. I can't think of anything else, and we are under a bit of a time crunch today,
No
unfortunately.
problem. No problem.
I Oh yes, that was the last thing that popped into my mind. Incorporating versus being a nonprofit. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about the nonprofit thing, but I did incorporate my own company. I chose to do a federal corporation as opposed to an Alberta provincial corporation, only because I wanted to reserve my company name. It's Demure Duchess Pictures. So I held the name across Canada. I also trademarked Demure Duchess and have product online available at Redbubble. So I think if you're thinking long term on going with things, think big. Think about where you want to go. Don't think about, do I need the company name at the time that you're opening it? Plan that this is going to be successful and it will grow there.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much it for today. Yeah, we are under a time crunch here. You want to shamelessly plug anything while you've got the time?
I would just say follow me on social media, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Carolyn B. Kennedy, because Super Speed Dates is coming out on February 13th and you'll get notice when it's online. It's very funny and I think you'll enjoy it. Follow me on Twitter at Carolyn B. Kennedy. Follow me on Instagram at Carolyn B. Kennedy. And I'm also on Facebook. I'm pretty active and tend to post most days, except when I get too insanely busy. But yes, keep in touch and I'll be sharing all my news on there.
Yeah, day job, come home, usually have to spend at least an hour or two each day. Well, I mean, my issue is finding guests, although oddly enough, I'm finding it fairly easy to get people to talk about themselves. It's trying to balance two different YouTube channels to get to squeeze them all in.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. This has been a really fascinating and delightful interview. I would. I want to get some more business feedback from somebody. I think I will definitely be keeping you in mind.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on to chat with you.
Yes, thank you very much for coming on. All right, Edmonton Filmmakers Group, Hangout number 3. This was Carolyn Bridget Kennedy. Hopefully I didn't botch the interview too much with my coughing. I will hopefully be much healthier, although I have to go and do another Hangout on Tuesday on the same channel with somebody. Hopefully I won't be coughing on her. But thank you very much for coming on, and I will keep in touch.
Thanks, Sam. Sounds good.
All right. Bye.